Let's now take you through some of the front pages of the newspapers in Nigeria. And joining us to review the big stories is the publisher of the niche newspaper, Ikechukwu Amechi. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Good morning.
All right. We'll begin the newspaper review this morning by seeing what's on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. And on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, big story says, ECOWAS Niger's Junta begins talk soon. Military rulers accept dialogue, ulamas to brief Tinubu today. We sacked Bazoum to save Niger, Nigeria, says the coupists. Why we slummed Abdusalami delegation. Protests in Katsina for Bazoum's release. Envoy seeks U.S. help. Kano halts fee increment by private schools. Gombe Belchi Road bridge collapses after downpour. Overhead tanker collapse kills teacher in Edo. We also have at the top of the paper, road crashes claim 4,387 lives in 6 months. Diversion of diaspora remittances contributing to Naira crash, according to the CBN. And farmers flee as bandits invade Niger villages. All right, these are some of the stories. I'd like to find out which of the stories really, just jumps out at you and which you'd like to make a comment on.
Well, I think the story that jumps out is the running story of the coup in Niger and the effort of the ECOWAS, the regional bloc, to intervene. Of course, the ulamas, that's the Muslim clerics from Nigeria, met with President Bola Tinubu, and of course went also to Niger to see the coup leaders. And unlike the Abdul Salami-led delegation, which they snubbed, they had audience with this other group, that the clerics. And of course, the clerics are reporting back that the coup leaders are saying that they are open to negotiation. It remains to be seen the scope and breadth of the negotiation and what they are prepared to do or what they are prepared to take. But the truth of the matter is that I don't see the deposed President Bazoum, I don't see him now coming back to power. ECOWAS has no need, as everybody has now pointed out, ECOWAS has no business going to war in Niger Republic. And if perchance ECOWAS insists that it must go to war with Niger Republic, Nigeria has no business going into that war. Because at the end of the day, it will be, let me use the words of Chinua Achebe, it will be a war of blame. Why are you levying war on Niger Republic? And we have more fundamental problems in Nigeria. This is a country where we are told over 130 million people are into multidimensional poverty. This is a country where unemployment is more than 30%. This is a country where we are even borrowing to pay salaries, and we are going to war. It doesn't make sense. So That's the story of the day. That's the story that everybody is looking up to. If there is a diplomatic way out of the quagmire, ECOWAS faltered ab initio by putting the option of
military intervention.
Military intervention. I don't think they had that business. And you're dealing with a military government. And from what we have seen in Niger, whether for good or for bad, the Nigerians seem to support, for whatever reason, the government. So I don't see what we are going there to do.
Okay, well, we're going to move away from the Daily Trust to the Guardian now and see what we can find there. I think the big conversation there is another trending story in Nigeria, which is the CBN's report. But it says there, CBN's Fiscal Responsibility Act, investigator probes CBN staff, consultants, NIBSS, and the NSPMC. That's on page 6. The major conversation is about what revelations we saw over the weekend with the CBN report. And the different details here and there that show that the CBN may have broken, a plethora of laws in its actions. Also, ministerial nomination as litmus test for APC in Southeast. Niger, military succumbs to dialogue, says coup in Nigeria's interest. And also, Tinubu's reforms will fail without economic justice, ending corruption, says Bakari. Shareholders point fingers over court order barring FBNH from holding AGM. And also, how fuel subsidy removal impedes justice administration. Final one on The Guardian this morning. How 66 days of APC plunged Nigeria into further darkness. That's by the Labour Party. All right, so let's have you share your thoughts on the CBN report that, of course, has made loads of conversations. And also, I think it will be interesting to also, talk about the how 66 days of APC plunged Nigeria into further darkness by the Labour Party.
Well, if we come back to the issue of the CBN, I agree that some of the monetary policy by the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, were harebrained. They didn't make sense then, and they don't make sense now. But Emefiele also worked under a president who seemed to have authorized all that he did as the CBN governor. Yes, the CBN Act gives the governor or gives the CBN a very good measure of autonomy. But if you ask me, I think that is more on paper. In reality, no central bank governor, particularly in Nigeria, acts on his own whims and caprices. So I think what President Bola Tinubu is doing is like if you ask me, I think it is more of a vendetta war than actually getting to the root of all the problems that we had under President Muhammadu Buhari. If we are going to probe the CBN, and I think probe is in order, we should make that probe all-encompassing.
Yeah.
I don't see why President Muhammadu Buhari has not been called to answer some questions.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a short break in a bit, but I would like that you start maybe on talking about Bakari's story here. It says Tinubu's reforms would fail without economic justice or ending corruption, and also the Labour Party saying that the government came and 66 days of the APC has plunged Nigeria into further darkness. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll have you speak on those.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're still reviewing the newspapers. We're joined by the publisher of the niche newspaper, Ikechukwu. Thank you very much for joining us. Before we went on the break, we're reviewing a big story on the Guardian newspaper, and Osagi had asked you to react to it. It says how 66 days of APC plunged Nigeria into further darkness by the Labour Party. Is this a position that you probably would align yourself with, judging by the time we've had in office? Would you say that you've been pleased? Would you say that the Labour Party maybe has an argument to, a valid argument?
I think they do. And if we tie it back to what Pastor Tunde Bakare said yesterday in his State of the Nation address in his church, I think the problem the APC has, and it didn't start today, it has always been there since 2015 when they won election, and they are tall on propaganda, but very short on substance. And that is what is playing out now. I don't see what value the Bola Tinubu presidency in the last 2 months has added to whatever mess Buhari left behind in 8 years. Bola Tinubu had his job cut out for him, and that was to clean the mess of the APC government under President Muhammadu Buhari. But he has not. You know, when in his inauguration speech, he said subsidy is gone, and people were jumping up, and of course, he also went into the foreign exchange, and people were jumping up. I was asking myself, where are the fundamentals in the whole fuel subsidy value chain, if I could put it that way? There is none of the fundamentals that is under the control of Nigeria. As long as the local refining capacity is zero, as long as we import refined petroleum products,
right,
and we don't control the price of crude oil, as long as we don't control the landing cost, and as long as the naira, value of the naira is not under control because we are not producing, and therefore we are not exporting and we are not earning foreign exchange. All these things cannot, it is harebrained to say you have removed fuel subsidy and now everything is going to be determined by market forces. Market forces how? Okay, now the dollar is going to almost 1,000 naira to a dollar. So what do?
It's quite it's a reality what you have explained, an uncomfortable reality where analysts have predicted that the dollar might actually get to 1,500 and that if we're not careful, the government might have to intervene or step in with the floating to sort of interrupt the floating of the naira. It's just a lot that is happening. It's really tough times for Nigerians, and I don't know what light. I'm hoping that we can really see a light at the end of the tunnel. Let's head over to the Daily Independent and see if we can see some good news on the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper. On the front page, we have the big story there, of course, not great news. It says CBN Naira float may crash in a short time. Experts warn. They say Nigeria is not ripe to operate currency float, literally what we're just talking about. Devaluation affecting productivity and manufacturing. We are ready for dialogue, says Niger Republic Junta, says coup averted threat against Niger and Nigeria. Niger coup diplomacy remains overarching imperative, according to Obi. Otudeko behind court order stopping First Bank AGM shareholders allege. Serap sues Akpabio Abbas over 110 billion naira spending on cars and others. Niger NLC counsels ECOWAS on military intervention. Aviation College outrage over missing 4.750 billion naira, 2 trainee helicopters. Senators query rector, petitions National Assembly. Helicopters were duly auctioned, rector claims. At the top of the paper, we have Tinubu has plunged the naira into chaos, according to Bakari, and participants to open dollar accounts with CBN for settlement of in-country forex funds transfer. All right, there are 2 stories here that I'd like you to react to. CBN Naira float may crash in a short time, experts warn. Would you say that maybe the policy of floating the Naira at the time that the government did, was it a great idea at the time that they did it? And do you foresee that indeed the Naira float will indeed crash? And also, I'd like you to react to Serap suing Akpabio. Last week, there were several reactions to him sending prayers to the emails of a number of the members of Senate. And, we can see here that, Serap has gone ahead. We had the director of Serap join us on the show last week and assured us that if he didn't come out to publicly declare how much they were spending, they would sue. And now Serap has gone ahead to sue for 110 billion spending on cars and others. So I'd like you to react to these 2 stories.
The first story, which has to do with the foreign exchange decision will crash. If you ask me, I would say, of course, I alluded to that earlier. Look, we are not producing. This is not a nation that is producing. And we are an import-dependent country. When you float your currency in such circumstance, you don't have control over, because you're not earning. Like you said, it is likely, if nothing is done, it will get to 1,500 naira to $1 sooner than later, even before December. Look at what we've lost. As at the time Buhari left office, and that was barely 2 months ago, naira was exchanging then at about, okay, in the parallel market, it was exchanging then at about 700 naira to $1 approximately. Today, it is 1,000 naira to $1. 2 months. 2 months. So the level of depreciation is unimaginable, and it is not sustainable, because businesses will crash with the high cost of petrol or energy in general. Businesses will crash. There is, look, you don't need to be an economist, and I am not one, to appreciate that fact. But when you go out there and see the number of businesses that are already folding up, then you will appreciate that whoever advised President Bola Tinubu to go that route either hates him or does not understand what the issues are. So it is. I agree with that. I agree with that story. And now we may be forced to come to a situation where the government may have to swallow its pride and go back
some of these policies
and reverse
Mr. Mechi,
the policies and go back to, because, okay, what if, for instance, prices of crude oil?
Mr. Mechi, unfortunately, we would have to wrap it up here. Like you said, it feels like it's a government that is used to propaganda instead of actually doing the work, and we've carried on that same behavior from the previous government to this one now. But we of course, will continue these conversations. We thank you for joining us this morning and for sharing your thoughts on these top stories making headlines across Nigeria. We'll be speaking with you again.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.